You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
And I have with me this amazing woman with this amazing name, Siddiqi. I love it. Siddiqi Ray. So she is a visibility mentor. She's a speaker. She's a photographer. She has done so much. So Siddiqi is an inspirational keynote speaker. She's an acclaimed photographer. And I'll name off just a few of the amazing people she's had the gracious ability to take pictures of. And she's a master storyteller. She's an award-winning photographer, speaker, and entrepreneur. She's been fortunate enough to have clients such as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the Kennedy family, Nelson Mandela, the Buddhist nuns of Tibet, and my favorite, the Navy SEALs. And with that, the SEALs and flow, we're going to talk a little bit about flow. So Siddiqi, welcome.
Welcome to you who are listening or watching. We're so glad you are here. You did not land here by accident today. So Gail and I are going to drop down some awesome wisdom, a little transmission of energy for you if you're into the functional woo. And Gail, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
I think it's just fantastic. Now, you're no longer in California right now. You're in the Netherlands, right?
Oh, Netherlands. That would be good.
No, that's someone else.
Wish for IKEA. No, I'm in Auckland, New Zealand right now. My husband is a Kiwi, which is what they call people from New Zealand. So yeah, got stuck here during lockdown, rescued by the universe, picked up out of LA, put into Auckland, New Zealand, and I've been here ever since.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. So, well, then go to the Netherlands for a visit. You must have to go. So talking about being in flow, I think we want to first define what that means and why it's important. So, for me, being in flow means that there's resistance during the day. Things come up, right? But when they do, I'm able to immediately know that I'm responding, right? That I'm having a reaction, and I can stop and then just let that energy, negative energy, if you want, I hate to call energy negative because energy is beautiful, but flow through me. I don't hang on to it. And then look at the why of the experience, right? So when you think about flow, what do you think about?
Interesting. So mine is a little opposite of that. Mine is more, I'm thinking about this. Mine is, I think my message to myself that I love to look in the mirror and say, you're not in charge. You're not controlling this whole thing. You're just a creative component of it. And when I'm in flow, I'm truly living my true nature and my true purpose. And I feel like my life has been this circuitous route to finding that place where I realize that I am the predominant creator of my life and I get to choose. And so for me, the state of flow is allowing opportunities to flow to me. And instead of saying why or what is it, I say, how can I? So to me, how can I is the trigger in my mind to go into a resourceful state and relax and allow myself to just be with what is versus trying to force outcomes.
Oh, I love that, versus trying to force outcomes. And I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about that and the typical do the work attitude that is bantered around. And I come from a background of corporate, and I've seen things like do the work being misused as a manipulative tool, right?
Hmm.
And when I think of doing the work, I think of what it takes to clear those blocks so that I can be in flow. So doing the work isn't to sit down every day and check off the list of things that I have to get done and be sure that I get it done, right? It isn't about putting an effort towards something. It's allowing versus forcing. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So what are your thoughts on what you observe and what you are now currently saying to the world and to businesses, particularly about how important it is right now to get into flow?
Yeah. I come from corporate too. The majority of my background, if you go look at my website or my resume, it's like, or LinkedIn, it's like corporate. And what I know about corporate is it's kind of this microcosm and reflection of society. And in corporate, it's like everybody has their place. There's this hierarchy, and there's this like, this is your role, this is your box, stay in it. And what I know about flow is that it can't be contained.
Right.
It can't be, as my husband always jokes, I'm quite dyslexic. I had a lot of learning disabilities, and I come up with words that I feel like, no, this is the word. And my favorite word is containerize. Like, you can't containerize flow. Flow happens outside the box. Flow happens outside the hierarchy. Flow happens outside the causes and conditions that keep us stuck and small and setting goals. So flow is the opposite of that. Flow is when you relax, you release, you let go of expectations of yourself, of others, and you drop into that place of pure potential. And corporations, I worked for one corporation that was famous for hiring like absolute rock stars. They would go and they would find like the rock star in the industry in any certain area. And then they wanted you to conform and to be part of something. But rock stars don't do that really well. And I remember getting written up. I remember getting called into like the principal's office in corporate America and told like, why did you do X, Y, Z? That wasn't in your job role. I'm writing you up. You need to stop going outside the bounds of your role. But that's what made me so flipping good, is because my energy would flow. And I'd be like, how can I do that research study? Even though I don't have a degree and I'm not a doctor and I don't have a master's degree, how can I, bring this insight to this corporation? And the hierarchy was like, the people at the top loved the ideas, but the people in middle management were always like, that's not your role. That's not your place. You don't have the credentials, like very, very small-minded and like fit in a box. And
So very afraid of change. So afraid of change. So yeah, my last corporate job, JOB, I was project managing. I actually was a program manager. I had project managers underneath me. And when I started that department, I was given a program to develop. And I had it developed and up and running in like 6 months, functioning on its own. And I heard that apparently they had been trying to get that program up and running for 5 years and couldn't get it. And I'm like, okay, right. It wasn't rocket science. It just made sense to get these cogs in a row so that they could work together, right? So a vice president asked me to work with him on a project that was coming up. And here's what he said: I want you to do for me what you just did. And then he proceeded to micromanage me daily. And it got to the point where I'm like, well, I'm not doing this project. He's not going to get what he got, right? Because it's not me, it is him. And he has failed in everything that he's tried to do. So this is going to fail. And
so I hope you charged him triple for that.
Well, at the time I was working for the company, I probably wouldn't have taken, or I would have left the gig. I would have left the gig if it was private. That's the company that I got fired from. And that's the job I was under when I got fired, right? Best gift ever for me, because if it was a contract, I would have canceled the contract. right? Because it wasn't flowing. It wasn't flowing. And you're absolutely right, Siddiqui. The key to every success I've ever had, when I look back, it's when I was in flow. It's when I trusted and didn't question my intuition.
Mm.
Would get up and say, oh, I think I'll do this today. I think this is what needs to be done. Bam.
Yeah, you know, intuition is a really big part of what, when you read that list, intuition is a really big part of what got me into those situations. And then it's a huge component of what I teach and mentor women, in particular women leaders, on now, is how to really trust yourself, how to trust that innate knowing that we all have. Because when you don't, you can stack up the disasters of, but I knew, and you can look back and say, why didn't I follow it? Why didn't I go with it? But that's not very helpful, is it? Because you can't undo the decisions that were made. And so if we can start to develop this muscle of intuition, if we can start to build a trust with it, if we can start to have a process of flow around it, we can realize that in hindsight, it's always easy to say, oh, I could have done that and that would have led to flow. In hindsight, it's easy to see, you know, the disaster that you could have averted. I have a client that her and her husband are, you know, worth a lot of money. And she woke up one day right before the stock market went down. And she said to her husband, we need to, like, her intuition was, we need to sell all our stocks. And her husband was like, okay, this is a little bit of crazy, but you seem really, really adamant about it. And so then he kind of signed off on it. She went to the stock person controlling the stock. And the person was like, no way, like we've done so well. We've gotten you here. It's taken years. You can't sell it all. So the compromise was, well, we'll sell half. And then 2 days later, the whole market crashed. They lost $500,000. And she looked back and she said, I wish I had followed that instinct, right? That intuition. I'm using instinct and intuition interchangeably.
Right.
So at the bottom levels of corporate, it's like we're following rules, we're following regulations. At the top levels of leadership, there is always a good deal of reliance on instincts, on intuition. And if you talk to any really good leader, they always come down to, well, I just trusted my gut when I hired that person. I trusted my gut when I signed off on that project. When people deconstruct how success is formulated, it's actually not a formula. It's always this trusting. If you go look at Shark Tank and some of the interviews with the Shark Tank, leaders, they're always like, I just trusted my gut about where I was going to invest the money.
Right.
So flow is about learning to trust that innate sense of knowingness. I know you have a formula. We were talking about that. And one of the parts of the formula is emotional intelligence.
Right.
I equate emotional intelligence, if you nuance it out, with intuition, instinct, flow. You can't have one without the other. You can't have flow without trusting your intuition.
Right.
You just can't.
Right.
You can't have intuition and instincts without being in flow. So it's interchangeable.
It's absolutely interchangeable. Yeah. But the first part of that formula is your state, or EI, emotional intelligence. And what I mean by that is, if you're in a state of sadness, anger, shame, or any heightened emotional state, even love, heightened emotional state, you're not going to make a good choice. You're blocking flow. Right. And so you need to adjust that state. And there are a bunch of tools to adjust that emotional state. There's a whole other thing about, now let's address it. But in the moment when you want to be in flow, you need to relax. You need to trust, right? You need to let go. And it's something that people are just starting to learn to do. Thank you for the great resignation, or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to say the C word so that we don't get shut off, right? Right. But we had a shutdown. And in that shutdown, we had the opportunity to go within, right? We had the opportunity to find that peace and that balance, to find our natural rhythm, right? And some people have found it and don't want to let it go. And that's the people that are resigning, that are leaving their business or leaving their company, because they're not getting the opportunity to stay in flow. Right. And your natural rhythm is part of that. If you're the type of person like I am that needs a nap after lunch, when you're in the office, you cannot have a nap after lunch. Right. You have to push through. When you're home, and for me, a nap is 10 minutes, maybe 20. Right. But it's just really almost a meditation, just to sit down and relax and just forget about everything for a little bit. And then I come back completely refreshed, almost like brand new in the morning. Right. So what is your natural state, and how can you incorporate that in your day-to-day life? Right. So what's yours, Siddiqi?
You talked, when we first met, we were talking about the Navy SEALs, because
Right.
I did an assignment for them. And one of the things that I remember seeing was they have like slogans everywhere. And I was in Hawaii on Pearl Harbor Naval Base, and it says, pain is resistance leaving the body. And I think in order to get to a state of flow, you have to surrender. And oftentimes we don't go willingly. We leave claw marks on the floor. And so a lot of the Navy SEAL training is around beating the resistance out of your body so that you relax, so that you surrender. And that's at the beginning stages. It has to be beaten out of you. It has to be, you have to just surrender and surrender and surrender from physical exhaustion. I think the correlation between the Great Resignation and surrender is, in order to be in flow, there's something in you that has to surrender. And I remember going and diving with the Navy SEALs is one group of them. And there's tons of equipment. There's so much technical stuff. There's the dive plan. There's all this stuff. And then right before everybody goes overboard, there's a check with each other. And then there's this moment of, you can just tell everybody is dropping in, and they drop into this kind of like group mind. And they are now not individuals doing the dive. They are a group, like a unified field of consciousness. That is not how they would explain it, but that's how I would explain it from observing it. And they become this organism, this ecosystem unto themselves, which is where the highest functioning part of each individual rises to the top, like cream rising to the top. If we could somehow get to that in corporate America, we would have amazing breakthroughs. But instead, it's about control. And control and flow are in direct opposition. So for myself, I am a natural introvert with great extrovert skills, but I spend a lot of time getting into flow myself, releasing the resistance. For me, hardcore exercise. I used to be a soul cycle instructor, which is about pounding the crap out of your body. But I would find that after 18 classes, I would finally hit this state of the sweet spot of surrender, where my mind would literally just turn off, and I would drop into this stream of peace, and I'm hoping that in the Great Resignation, people let go of their ambition. They let go of their goals. They let go of trying to figure it out. And they dropped into that. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of people are burned out and in resignation because we were fighting something that was so ambiguous and went on and on and on and on. And you can do two things from that state of resignation. One, you can truly surrender and get to that resourceful state of like, okay, I give up, what's next? Or you can just be like, I'm giving up trying at all, and go into depression and anxiety, which is what we're seeing a lot of.
Right.
So the way out of it is to get back into a creative, resourceful state wherein all possibilities are created. And to do that, we need to rest and let go, which is
scary. And it's interesting because I just had a conversation with someone else on a podcast, and that whole podcast was about letting go in a spiritual way into the fifth, sixth, and eighth dimension, just to let go and let it flow, because that's where all the answers are. That's where all the desires are. That's where all the juiciness is. That's where all the creation is, right? All of the things that we want to do, the answers are there, right? And so to tap into that, and that's, what we're talking about when we talk about creativity. It could be as small as, artistically creating a cake, which is not small in my opinion. But for some people, that's, when they're cooking, they get into flow, right? It's tactile. For me, it's dancing, right? And I'm at the point, because I used to dance 5 or 6 days a week, and I competed, right? And so it gets into your muscle memory. And so when I hear certain songs, I like the muscle memory kicks, right? So it's just the song, not even the act of dancing now. If I just hear that music, my whole body, like, oh, I remember what that feels like. Bing, 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 bing. And I'm in flow. And I don't hear the song anymore. I'm in flow. It's just that's so that the repetition of getting into flow makes getting into flow easier and easier and easier. Right. So what were you thinking when you saw the Navy SEALs all like, practically at once?
I was thinking it was really interesting to see the, the toggling in between. And when you're diving to depths up to 450 feet, the recreational dive limits for those of us that are just mere mortals is like 100 feet. And so they're quadrupling that, and they definitely get into this state of Zen. I remember, this is back in the day of film. And so I would have to go down, photograph them, go back up, do a deco dive. It's, like decompression.
Right.
Get Dennis, who was driving the boat, to come and get me, switch out the film, and then go back down. And I remember on the second ascent one time, they were all huddled together with their backs against each other. And I had never seen them like that before. And they were doing this to me, and I didn't know what that meant. I was like, is that
Shark?
Right. And so we were surrounded by hundreds of hammerhead sharks, and they were not freaking out. They were just like, this is what we do. Obviously they're not communicating it. And, I just remember being like, they're so chilled about this. They're so at peace with the fact that there's hundreds of sharks swimming around them. I was peeing in my wetsuit. I was so nervous. I was just like, oh my God.
You had warm spots.
I had warm spots. Shark repellent. No, I was, and I was just really amazed and awestruck at how no matter what happened, they could find this place of resourcefulness. So flow and resourcefulness are one and the same. And what leads up to that is sometimes turmoil, struggle, feeling lost. And if we can remember to build this muscle of trust with that really small voice, that knowingness, however it lands, is it a voice? Is it a feeling? Is it a sense? Whatever it is, that's your intuition. And invariably, it is guiding you, nudging you in an unknown direction that has unexpected but unprecedented results. And as you read down my resume, if you will, all those names, the Kennedys, Nelson Mandela, photographing the Dalai Lama 15 times over the course of 20 years. None of it had to do with my ambition or making it happen. Not one of those times did someone ask to see my portfolio, ask to see my resume. It was all situations of being in the right place at the right time and having no idea what was coming next, but being like, oh, I'm feeling this tug to go in this direction. I'm going to just go, even though it's illogical. It felt illogical to me, to everybody else. They're like, why are you going to India? I'm like, I don't know. A year later, I was coming home on the plane, and I was like, if you had told me to go to India, find Buddhist nuns to live with, didn't even know the Tibetans were in India, Go live with Buddhist nuns, go photograph the Dalai Lama for Time magazine, go meet my idol, which is Steve McCurry. He's the photographer that did like the Afghan girl with blue eyes and the red scarf. Go meet him, get him as your mentor. It would have been mission impossible. I would have never been able to figure out how to make those things happen. But when you drop into that flow state, your intuition is like, go here. And you're like, I don't know why. But if you ask why, you will miss the point. You will miss the turnoff on the road every single time. You just have to say, how can I?
Right.
How can I? I don't know. How can I? That's how all those magical situations unfold, is being in that resourceful state, not needing to know what's next, not needing to know the outcome, not needing to know why. And in fact, Gail, not ever asking, why me? Because that's, I ran into that in corporate America. Like, why you? Why are you doing this research study? Why did you get this award? And it's like, I didn't expect that. I just showed up and said, this is my idea. How can we make it happen? So that's my phrase. How can I?
How can I? And honestly, we were talking about the presentation the keynote that I created all around flow. And I haven't done a keynote since before we had to lock down. And when this came, I wasn't looking for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got a call and it was offered to me. And the fact that it was offered to me and I had the opportunity to do it as flow being the topic almost floored me, because it's basically what I do with my clients. Just like you, let's get rid of the resistance, figure out how to get rid of the resistance so that you can just sink into who you are, and it's so beautiful. People's faces change, Siddiqi. Their whole personalities change when they are able to find that inner peace, right? And trust and love themselves and believe in themselves, right? So I could go on forever because I've got a few other things. So there's a story that you kind of touched on, hinted on, and that is you were in flow, working for an organization in flow, doing what you did organically, and then left. What happened to those, quote, processes that you were supposed to do? Was it even reputable? Could anyone even repeat it?
Right. That was one of the complaints.
Right.
They were like, I got these incredible results on this research study. I was studying mindfulness and mindfulness training and the effect it had on individuals and then on an organization. And so at the time, my little side hustle was as a yoga instructor, and I had been doing yoga with the C-level suite of this organization, and kind of like for fun and for free. It wasn't even a big job. It was my real job was as a corporate photographer, right? So I'm doing this thing, and I have these incredible results on my research study. 60 people signed up for 40 days, 100% completion, incredible off the chart results. And my manager at the time was like, nobody's going to be able to get these results. And it was true, because they tried to systematize the results so that they could repeat it as a research study. So as a research study, nobody else was able to do it. I go online every once in a while because I'm cited. This research study is cited in so many other research studies because, interestingly enough, at the time, I had done enough teaching to know the outcome that I wanted to prove, but there was no measurement tools to really measure what I was trying to measure, which was an emotional, physical, mental, spiritual shift in individuals and as a group. And so the tool of measurement did not exist at the time. I remember going to the institutional review board and trying to find the tool of measurement that would show the difference in the state of flow for the individual. And so many years later, they have found that. But we always have to start where we are. And it kind of felt like I was making it up on the spot, and I kept getting questioned and questioned and questioned. So they haven't been able to, as far as I know, repeat that exact research study. But what they have done is they have taken the program that I created and they have practiced it in different departments of this major organization. So to me, my job was done there,
Right.
but I actually got right up to the point where I was about to be fired. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to let myself get fired from this, high level corporate job. And so I went home and I tapped into my intuition, and it was like, just quit, give
It's
2 weeks
time.
notice.
Yeah.
And everything in me was like, oh my God. Cause as a photographer, it was the ideal job, like all the equipment, travel on the corporate jet. I mean, it was just sensational. It was amazing. And everything in me was like, don't quit. But my inner knowing was like, you have to quit. So I went in the next day. I gave my 2 weeks notice. People were shocked. Why? I didn't want to throw this manager under the bus. I'm like, she's doing the best that she can. This is her interpretation of, I was literally, when she wrote me up the final time, she was like, you are a rock star and you are up here and everybody else is down here. And people feel bad because you're up here and they can't repeat what you've done. And so you need to come down here and be part of what we do, or you need to get out, because it's bad karma to make everybody feel bad. And I was like, that's interesting. So I gave my notice, and everybody's like, what are you going to do? And I used my intuitive voice, and I was like, there's some opportunity that I cannot talk to you about that has come, and I need to leave. And so thank you so much for everything. On the inside, I was like, freaking out, like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I, and in that 2 week span, my grandmother had died and I inherited a lot of money. And then also in that time, I had been having interactions with the Kennedy family. And one of the Kennedys came along and said, I need you to come live with me in Washington and be my mentor, be my coach. And I need you like right now. And so within that 2 week time, I got this wad of money and I got hired to go work with the Kennedys.
Right.
Could I have constructed that? No, I had to quit first. I had to let go first. And that's the thing. It would be easy to let go. It would be easy to give your notice if you knew that you were going on to this like ginormous career and income. But no, you have to let go first. And then you find the state of flow. But it comes with a lot of questioning. It comes with a lot of doubt. It comes with a lot of, oh my God, how is this going to work out? The claw marks on the floor. However, everything amazing in my life has come as a result of struggling, being in resistance, being in pain, finally letting go. And then the miracle happens.
And the miracle
right?
happens. And the
miracle happens.
And so I wrote down systemizing flow, almost with a like, right after it. Right. And I think, so it's my intuition that systems are the downfall of business today. There was a time and a place over 100 years ago when systems were needed in order to create enough wealth to go around so people could get out of poverty, quite frankly, right? Because in order to get into flow, you can't be in poverty. You can't be concerned about your base chakra when you're trying to create flow. It can't be a problem. Now we're at the point where finances are not really a major concern globally, not necessarily. There are pockets, of course, of poverty. And so as a result, those systems that were put in place are in direct conflict as to our next evolutionary process, which is flow.
I think that the people that I work with are leaders. They're in leadership. They're either leading people or in organizations, or they're on the leading edge of, discovering things, thought processes. They're like crazy mad scientist types. They're in leadership. And so when you're in a position of responsibility like that, getting in flow needs to become a routine. Yes. And so there's a difference between a system that boxes you in and a routine that creates enough structure so that you can drop into that place. You can be mindful. You can drop into that place. Like I can drop in like this. I channel in part for a living. And so I do these intuitive readings, and I can drop in like this because I've spent 40 years learning to meditate and to drop in and to access that place in me that just knows what I know. And so if you are in leadership, especially, you are being called to think outside that paradigm of structure, and instead think of what are the routines that we can put into place that will help everybody let go of the hierarchy and get into that creative, resourceful state, because that's where the paradigm really shifts.
Exactly. And it's like the Navy SEALs getting into the circle, right? And if you had observed them getting into circle, there probably was one person saw the shark, and then all of them felt the shift and got into circle, right? And this is where the ability to get into group flow is where the intuition, the brilliance, the magic, the creativity, the safety actually is, right? And that's why we're not an isolated species. We really are a species that is communal, right? And that communal flow, I'm sure that you've experienced it, is amazing. And that communal, thousands of miles away, feeling, oh, I need to pick up the phone, something's going on, right? What's happening? How did you know? I could feel you, right? Types of things happen, right? It's real, guys. And if you can, I don't want to say control it, but if you can find it, right? If you can find it, and I love your
practice it,
right?
Practice it.
And that's part of the formula, mindful routines, right? Right. If you can make it a mindful, purposeful routine, and then one day you'll just find that you're there. You'll see things, you'll feel things, depending on what sense is yours, you'll smell things, and you'll know because of that. And the knowing is delicious. Absolutely delicious.
Well, I think the knowing is delicious, but the building the muscle of trust for it is even more fascinating to me. And so, I have a similar formula to help people drop into their instincts and their intuition for greater levels of success. And it does revolve around mindfulness. And in my formula, it's really about also building that muscle through the routines and structures that support the letting go on the other side. And, and documenting and really observing. And that was one of the things that brought about the greatest shift in the research study. And so I'm saying this is scientifically proven, is that observation leads to greater level of breakthrough than giving someone a specific formula. So for instance, with people's diets, the Institutional Review Board is like, you have 60 people, they're all different ages. You can't give them one diet to follow so that they get this physical outcome. So I was like, fine, we'll just have them write down their food, turn it in, have it observed, turn it back to them without any comments, just like a check mark, we saw it. And would you not believe that this woman who is a nurse, she was a pediatric ICU nurse, we called her the Cookie Monster. She lived on Diet Coke and chocolate chip cookies. I kid you not, that is all she ate, and some cough drops, nothing else. After 4 weeks of turning in her food to be observed, 12 pack of Diet Coke, 6 chocolate chip cookies, 3 sugar-free cough drops, all of a sudden we saw like this radical shift in her behavior around food. She had a total breakdown. She had been on Diet Coke for so long. And she radically shifted the way she ate, not based on being told what to do, but knowing that she was observed. So observation is a really key. Observation without judgment, observation without dictate is one of the key ways that you can get into flow and create a completely different outcome. And I know it works across the board in all different areas. That's just one with diet, intuitive eating, whatever. And so that's what I would say. If you're stuck, if you're feeling that malaise, that resignation, that I don't even know what to do anymore. Okay, how can you get out of that apathetic lack of energy and do routines that get your energy and your flow back online? That's the most important thing. Do not set goals for 2023, people. If you are not in the energy of flow, forget about setting goals. Forget about trying to dictate any outcomes. Your first order of business is always to just get back into flow physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, in your relationships. From that place, all things are possible and miracles happen.
Absolutely. And so if people wanted to get in touch with you to know more, Siddiqi, how would they do that?
I do regular events online, and we always put them up for free into LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn, send me a note, and you will get the notifications of these events that we do, which are all about how to release the resistance, get into flow, and really trust your intuition. And from there, I have all sorts of magical things that I do. I have this thing called the soul portrait that helps you really step into and embody and see that part of yourself that has pure potentiality. But I always start with these free events that we do about once a month. So I'd love to have anybody that is here join us at one of the free events and just experience dropping into that state of trusting it, dropping into that state of flow, getting relief from the mind that's always trying to figure it out, and getting into that state of, I just know what I know, and now I'm going to make a decision to observe it and to trust it.
I love that decision to observe it and trust it. Fantastic.
I'm telling you, 2023, the key to success in business is going to be trusting that innate sense of knowing, trusting your instincts, trusting your intuition to lead you in a completely different direction. And I totally get that it's scary at first, but I'm here to say it really works. And everything that you've ever worked for, you're like, okay, great, I've done that. Now I need to let go. And this is the year of letting our intuition lead us into greater states of success, whatever that means.
Whatever that is. And I totally agree with you. And the link and information will be in the show notes, everybody. And thank you so much. This is Gail Kraft from the Empowering Process podcast. So if there's something in here that made you be a little bit curious, maybe rose a question in your mind, put it down in the notes, and Siddiqi and I will get together again and answer your question. If you know somebody who maybe could gain something from this, share this out. And as always, please like it and absolutely share it and subscribe. Love you. Bye-bye, Siddiqi.
Thank you so much, Gail.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.